Graveyards are traditional places of burial on consecrated land connected to churches. Cemeteries and crematoria are usually large tracts of land originally located on the urban fringes, manicured, an unlikely resource for those who want accessible memorialization and contemplation. Natural burial is where bodies or ash from cremation are interned in unconsecrated ground to allow the remains to recycle naturally. They're generally on the periphery of urban areas as the expectations of meadows or woodland and are an inherent part of the decision to bury green. This is a plan of a natural burial site near Ulster that I designed for Felix Dennis, and it's now open. And I designed it with initial tree planting to give it structure and a 50-year projection. I also won a bronze medal at RHS Malvern in 2013 for a natural burial site garden. So there's a confluence of issues related to urban environments. You have a lack of burial space, the inaccessibility of many burial sites located on urban fringes, the problems of urban microclimate extremes, and the lack of green space as a community resource. The lack of burial space is compounded by the cost of purchasing land and restrictions on local authority budgets. And while most people are cremated, there are still those that wish to be buried, perhaps for religious reasons. City temperatures can be as much as 1 to 3 degrees higher than temperatures in surrounding rural areas. And tree planting associated with graves will improve the air quality, CO2 absorption, reduce the heat island effect, and contribute to sustainable urban drainage systems. In 2010, the proportion of the world's population living in cities went into the majority. Green spaces encourage people to exercise with the consequent benefits of health, and trees are believed to relieve stress and so improve mental health and well-being. This proposal is based on the non-secular activity of burial and the subsequent secularization of the space for all to enjoy. This generates respect and responsibility for the space and invests the landscape with a new cultural significance, encouraging a greater acceptance of death. There's no doubt a conflict between maximising the revenue opportunities of urban land and providing green spaces. However, opportunities do exist in the form of carbon taxes and also the possibility of getting investors to buy the land cheaply and then sell it. Gordon Cullen coined the phrase serial vision to describe what one might see and experience as one walks through a sequence of urban spaces. An urban natural burial site gives the opportunities for contrast in proportion, geometry, density, and urbanity. Burial yards are considered part of the green infrastructure, and these sites should thread their way and surround the built environment and connect the urban area to its wider hinterland at all spatial scales. The site would require thorough surveys, including local geology, groundwater, nearby water, historical land use, and access modifications. And water runoff from the buildings would be directed to bioswales, which would help to slow and clean water as it runs off the land. Sustainable urban drainage is a beneficial adjunct to urban natural burial. And an area of approximately 100 metres squared holds 216 graves. The image there gives you an idea of the scale. Mapping tools enable grave location. There generally aren't permanent markers, and an area may be reserved for gathering. The design would incorporate an initial planting of extra heavy standards to give identity to the site and give it structure, and the species would be selected for their tolerance of urban conditions such as pollution. Spaces are likely to be geometric due to the urban layout. The burial site should contrast and complement the existing urban structures. In natural burial sites, memorialisation is through the trees and items like bird boxes, and an area of 100 metres squared holds 66 trees, depending on the species. And a network of green infrastructural spaces of substantial density, perhaps a minimum would be a half an acre, reflect current research in the best approach to mitigating environmental issues in urban areas. The natural burial site would become part of the urban infrastructure as it supports essential services within the city and performs culturally, socially and ecologically. The next stage is to model the proposition, quantifying the spaces of hope in terms of their ownership, their location and their size in a selected urban area, and this is city centre Manchester. Environmental outcomes from the proposal are measurable, as is the contribution of the proposal to the shortage of burial space. Can people, though, share our proposed spaces of ritual, sanctuary, contemplation and community focus with the dead? They seem to in Highgate Cemetery and at places like Winchester Cathedral, where people happily picnic and play. Thank you.